On this episode of Power Metal Point, we're going to talk about ways bands can set about establishing themselves and how to promote yourself and your music. I'm often asked by bands who are just starting out where to get a CD pressed, where they should market themselves online, how to get onto iTunes, among other things. Here are just some suggestions of things I've dealt with in the past. Every service I discuss in this video I've had dealings with and can personally recommend. Okay, let's cut to the chase. Bands, if you've recorded an album or have some shirts or other merch you want to sell, you are now a business. You're no longer a bunch of drunks hanging out and jamming. You are now an entity trying to make money. You and McDonald's are in essentially the same boat. You've got stuff to sell and you need people to buy it. If you're fine just being a bunch of friends who grab a case of beer and rock out, that's totally fine, but that's not the focus of this video. This is for bands who want to start climbing to the next level. If you want to sell albums and gain fans, you can't just act like a group of kids. If that's how you're going to act, and you have a recording out, then congratulations. You've just spent thousands of dollars to have 500 copies of your album sit in your basement. I can't begin to tell you how many bands who are starting out I've talked to that have recorded an album and hope it sells 1 million copies so they can become the next Iron Maiden, yet they've not talked to a single record shop about carrying it or don't even have a PayPal link on their website. And at gigs, none of the band members can bother to sit at a merch table or even mention that they have things for sale during their set. I can't tell you how many label owners I've spoken to who've told me time and again about this band or that band where everyone's a pothead and couldn't care less about promoting themselves. If you've recorded a good album and have sold only 15 copies of it, it's time to evaluate your business practices. Bands, like all businesses, need to be both accessible and visible. Right now, if you have merch to sell and no website, there's a problem. A Facebook page is well and good, but there needs to be multiple outlets for people to stumble upon your music. You can promote your album to your friends and family till you're blue in the face, but that limits you to a small core of people who probably aren't that enthused about your music and will only support you so much. You need to reach out to your demographic. Playing in a power metal band in Alabama, for example, is no longer the death knell that it used to be. Even if there aren't many local fans clamoring for your music, there are thousands of fans online that makes it easier to get word of mouth out to that audience. One website that makes it very easy to get your music onto iTunes, Spotify, and Shazam is CD Baby. It's a great service, and for only about $35, they can help you distribute your album and raise your online profile quite a bit. Also, get in touch with online distributors. There are dozens of independent metal labels and are also a great place to discover new bands while you're searching for another band's album through that distributor, and I've done it many times myself. Get your music onto as many websites as possible: SoundCloud, Reverb Nation, MP3 Unsigned, Pinterest, Tumblr, MySpace, YouTube, CBC Music. There are probably 100 websites out there that you can upload music to for free. And speaking of websites, get involved in the metal community. There are a lot of forums and groups you can promote your music in. As well, this allows you to join up with other like-minded fans who might be able to help you out in the industry. Next, you want to do as much press as possible. Make up an extra 50 CDs when you press your albums to send out to college radio stations, magazines, and webzines. Most metal magazines have indie review sections. There are a lot of metal fans out there, and a lot of them are aspiring journalists. So find some webzines and ask them if they want to hear your material. You'd be surprised how many will not only listen, but take the time to write a proper review. And this is what you're after. Review scores look great in a press kit. If you're a Canadian artist with an album out and you've sent it to radio stations, register your music with SOCAN immediately. It's free and they will collect on your behalf for any airplay that you receive. For international artists, there are other publishing companies who will collect on the behalf of artists such as ASCAP or BMI, so make sure to look into a few of them. Speaking of radio, make sure to get your music into as many college stations as possible. Although they might not be the #1 station in your city, they do have an audience. The thing that you're going after is trying to chart on the station's new music chart, as well as statewide or national charts. This is important because it lends credibility to your band's professionalism and is a nice thing to add to your press kit. Also, a lot of programmers for those stations will be more apt to interview you if they like your music. Also, check and see if any commercial stations near you have an indie show. Many stations still do. This next suggestion comes from a metal label owner who's worked with bands for almost 25 years. He says that in reality, an EP or demo is essentially worthless as a commodity. It's great for promoting your name and sending it to labels to arouse interest, or maybe sending to those aforementioned college stations, but nobody really buys them. If you're serious about selling a record and getting distributors to carry it, you need at least 40 minutes of material. The more content you can pack into a CD, be it videos, demos, live tracks, bonus tracks, or remix songs, the better. Labels and distributors really only like dealing with full-length albums because they sell far better and shelf space is limited. You're competing for people's entertainment dollar against the likes of video games, movies, and TV shows. The more stuff you can give people for a decent price, the more likely they are to buy your album. When it comes to getting your CD pressed, it needs to be replicated, not duplicated. Getting a CD duplicated means your CD has been burned and has a green or blue bottom. A replicated CD has a silver bottom, like one you'd buy in a store. You might think that people get the same music and same package whether it has a green or silver bottom, but silver is the standard. Plus, people feel a tad cheated when they've spent good money and gotten a burned CD, and it makes your product seem cheap. Believe me, I know from experience. Another thing to mention is to get a barcode. Many companies who press albums give you one for free if you get your album done through them. CD Baby also sells them for $10 to $20. This barcode is assigned to your song and album for life, and it's what will allow your CD to get onto iTunes and other online distributors. Also, it means chain stores like HMV, FYE, or Walmart can carry your album. It's also needed to register your album with SoundScan, which tracks official album sales. Once you get your CD or merch made up, make sure to price your stuff competitively. Ask yourself, how much are you willing to pay for an album? If most people you know are willing to pay $10 maximum for a full-length album, don't go charging $20 for yours. And that's the same thing with t-shirts or posters. It's okay to make a little bit of profit, but don't go overboard, especially on things like shirts or posters, because those are mainly for promo unless you're a major touring act. And remember, each CD sold is usually a new fan gained. And ultimately, that's what we're after. Hopefully some of these suggestions help. You don't even need to be in a band to utilize some of this information. It can also help make you a more useful fan to a band to help spread the word about them. We're in an age of information overload, and there are millions of entertainment entities competing for attention. Every little bit helps. Well, that's all for this episode, but feel free to promote your band in the comments section below. Also, make sure to like the Power Metal Point Facebook page and follow us on Tumblr and Pinterest.